Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate what you have done, your introduction of the T Act, along with Senator Heitkamp. I think that it is good, and as Senator Moran has noted, it is timely. And I too hope that much of what is being discussed today, whether it is your legislation, whether it's the legislation that we have introduced related to the settlement trust, that these will find their way into a larger tax package. I do think that it is important, and the messages that we've heard here today need to be reinforced. We don't want to leave out our Indian population, our Alaska Native population, when it comes to taxes and tax reform. So thank you for what you're doing with that. I know that my staff has been in contact with yours on a few recommended technical changes within your legislation, and making sure that we're including all the groups that are intended within the auspices of the T Act. So I look forward to working with you on that. Mr. Morris, thank you for being here today. Thank you for speaking to S1698. I do think that this is an important piece of legislation that really works to ensure that ANCSA is operating as it was intended to do, to help provide directly for the health, for the education, for the economic welfare of individual Alaska Natives who will benefit from these settlement trusts. We talk a lot about the need, the effort to make sure that that Indigenous Alaskans under the land claims that they will see benefits that are multi-generational is the term that we use, and I appreciate the opportunity that we've had with you to work on legislation here that's now before the committee to help ensure that we do see these benefits pass from one generation to the next. It's certainly been one of my long-standing goals, and I know yours. Can you explain to the committee, from your perspective, your experience, your history with ANCSA, how this bill 1698 can really help to ensure that the benefits are available for future generations?
Through the chair, thank you, Senator Murkowski. As you well know, we operate a little differently because we were required to do corporations. We're not on reservations. We don't have Indian country. What this bill does for us, 1971 locked in our shareholders. I mean, if you were a native after 1971, you just weren't a native belonging to anything.
And that needs to be repeated, because I don't think people understand that.
Well, when the Claim Settlement Act passed, if you were born prior to December 18th, 1971, you were eligible to become a member of that corporation. If you were born after that, you didn't get anything. Well, over time, Congress has tried to change that. There is a law in the books that allows these corporations, through a vote of their shareholders, to bring in what they call afterborns, those born after 1971. A lot of the corporations aren't doing that. We have these sort of lost members, except for the fact that they are all members of the tribal organizations. But the tribal organizations in Alaska, much like the lower 48, don't have a lot of income to help support their tribal members. The idea here is a bridge for being able to put land in perpetuity in these trusts so that all the future generations participate in those lands, even though they may not be trust lands as Indian country. They're sacred lands. It also allows us to be able to put money, in this case what we're asking for is to be able to contribute money and assets pre-tax to these trusts that do pay a tax on their income. Not as heavily as you get on the corporate side, but they still pay a tax. They, in turn, help support the individuals, and they also support tribal cultural programs, education. There's a myriad of things that we can do through those. And if you think about the corporations are formed under state law, you have a duty to those shareholders as a corporation. And if we're putting too much money off on projects out there, we're subject to a shareholder derivative suit on the other side. So we need a mechanism to be able to move assets over to take care of the whole, not just those that were born prior to 1971. So I look at it as the corporations, there's sort of been a sea change in the fact that I think corporations are now realizing our job should be there supporting the tribal efforts, because those are the important programs to our indigenous people. I guess that's probably why I've been working on this trust legislation so long, is that it is, to me, one of the bridges that makes this whole thing work for the long-term interest of all of our shareholders.
Well, I appreciate that explanation, and I think it's important that we were able to incorporate that as part of the record, because I do think it is not well understood that with ANCSA and with the establishment of the corporations, you have those, again, that were born pre-1971, and then you have the afterborn. So how you ensure that there is a bridge is probably the most apt term, as you have stated, to address those future generations of Alaska Natives. This is a mechanism, one that is designed, I think, fairly and openly, that can help facilitate that. So I thank you for your good work on this, and I look forward to hopefully putting this into play with the assistance of my colleagues here. So thank you for that.